and welcome here at macOS10screencast.com. The following screencast is brought to you by Free Mac Software, a website where you find awesome and hidden gems of free Mac software. The website URL is free-mac-software.com. This review, or this screencast rather, is about a DJing application called Mixxx, a free DJing environment that is available on the Mac App Store, and I hope you enjoy this screencast. Bye. At first launch, Mixxx asks to scan a specific directory for songs. This way you can build a huge library containing all of your songs easily. In my case, I select the music folder, as this folder will be the folder where my music will reside in mainly. This also scans the iTunes library. After the scan has completed, we see all scanned songs at the bottom. There we have a couple of options. The library contains all songs that were scanned. But we can also create our own playlists in the playlists area. This way we can build something like minimal or new rave playlists. A crate is similar to a playlist, but a crate doesn't remain order. I would recommend to use a playlist really as a playlist, a list that contains songs that are ought to be played in this specific order. A crate is more like a collection of songs which have no specific order. I don't want to go into detail with the playlist and library. I think they are pretty self-explanatory and you figure them out by yourself. However, I want to talk a bit about Analyze. Analyze is a place where you can analyze the songs for BPM and tempo information, so that it gets easier to play the tracks live. To actually perform the analyzation process, simply select a couple songs manually or select them all and then click Analyze. After the analyzation has been finished, you can check whether the tempo has been recognized correctly using the track properties. There we can manipulate track information, but also track BPM and cue points. Cue points are a handy tool that you can use to set start points for your songs. Let's say you create the first cue point right where the beat kicks in and another one where a break happens. Using those two cue points, you can easily adjust your playing to the current situation. When you realize your crowd needs beats, use the first cue point. When they need to be tickled, use the second one. In the preferences, you can choose to synchronize track changes. So when you set a different track name, it will show up in iTunes as changed as well. Tempo information won't show up in iTunes though, because iTunes isn't made for DJing. Let's talk about the actual DJing process. We have two decks that are mirrored and have the same controls. In the middle there's a crossfader that allows you to switch from player A to player B. There's an effects section. You got EQ controls along with kill switches that kill this particular, that eliminate this particular frequency range. You got volume controls. Up here we can set the tempo of a song. And if I load a song in the first player, you can actually see how this influences the speed of this song. A right click on each control resets it. When we start playing with this button here, this is what the listeners are hearing. The signal goes from the left player through all EQ controls, over the channel fader, through the crossfader, over to the balance controls, the master volume, and then to the speakers. Now let's load another track in the right player. This track has a slightly different tempo, so we can easily set sync to let Mixxx figure out the tempo automatically. We could also do it manually. In some cases, the automatic process may not work as perfectly, but in most cases, the sync function does what it's advertising for, and you don't have to worry about doing it manually. There are two waveform displays. One that shows the entire track, and one that shows just the region. The complete waveform can be used to step to a further playback position, for instance, skip a break or the intro. To actually mix in the second track, we use the headphone cue function to route the audio coming from that track to our headphones. People will always hear what's coming out of the crossfader. Always. But what we hear can be determined by the headphone switch. This way we can pre-listen to the second track before people do. This allows us to set up tempo correctly and align the beats. This is called beat matching. Right next to the sync button is a big slider that sets the speed for that track, and a couple more controls that allow me to set the track's tempo temporarily and permanently. I use the temporary switches to match the beats and then kick the second track in. The only problem that I have, because this is a demonstration, I can't use the headphone switches. That's why I'm going to set the crossfader to a middle-ish position so that you can follow and hear what happens on my headphones and can see what I'm doing. If this is too fast for you, you can always skip backwards and rehear this part. Pay attention to how I'm going to use the different kill switches and faders to make the transition from the first track to the next. More advanced DJs will want to set up Mixxx to be used with their DJ hardware. In my case, this DJ hardware is an iPhone or iPad app named TouchOSC. I use Oscillator, which runs in the background to transform the OSC signals sent from TouchOSC into standard MIDI signals that are understood by Mixxx. Setup is pretty straightforward. When a controller is connected, it'll show up under MIDI controllers in the preferences. Simply select the one that you want to use with Mixxx and enable it. Now if you have one of the controllers listed under presets, simply select the one you're using or start the MIDI learning wizard, which I'm going to do now. The wizard asks for each control separately, and by simply moving or activating a control on the device, Mixxx maps that control to the one it's asking for. I do this now with a couple controls, for instance the crossfader and a couple other controls, to show you how this actually works. Now that I have configured everything, let's see how this integrates with Mixxx. After closing the preferences, I'm now able to control Mixxx using my iPhone, which looks pretty impressive on a party, by the way. Lastly, one thing I want to mention in this screencast: in case you're DJing for an internet radio, go to Preferences, and under Live Broadcasting you can set up how Mixxx should broadcast to the internet. Mixxx supports Icecast 1 and 2 and even Shoutcast compatible streams. This way you can easily DJ for every internet radio station which is out there.